We have work on it too.
Yeah, watch it while you're in, sitting and being lectured.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Hey, bring it on.
There you go.
Welcome, everyone. We, Tommy Hogan and Megan Dykler are absent today, but we have a quorum, so let's call them to order at 4:31. So moved. All right. First on the agenda is approval of the June 3rd, 2024 minutes. Date the minutes. And would they be accepted? Thank you. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Second on the agenda is public participation. Let's go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. At the last meeting, the village of, Rockinger's mayor was here and talked about, buying water from the joint water board. And while this may look like a sure thing, I just wanted to say that, over the years, by attending meetings, people have come in and said that, they wanted to take water. They're like, about 4 years ago, it was Pleasant Valley came in and, there was some amount of work done, I believe, by the attorney and by the engineer, and then nothing ever came of that. So just like to make sure that when these proposals come in, that they are paying for, whatever the rates are, or however somehow that they pay for any costs that are incurred, because, I don't think that the town and the city residents should have to pay for that, especially if nothing ever comes of it. So I think that the any fees incurred should be paid when people come in and ask. Thank you.
Anyone else? Plant status report, Randy?
Production was up over 1 million gallons last month, prior to May. Quality's been good, same thing as the previous month. We did process a lot of sludge last month, but that was due to the fact that we drained basin number 3, and we had residual solids there that had to be processed. Mentioned in my report that a complex control failure started May 17th, continued to impact operations through June. As of now, the chlorine pumps remain in manual, and there's still some modifications that need to be completed with high lift pumps. Throughout June, we remain in compliance with all drinking water standards and provide all necessary water flow. So we work through it. Right now, it's not causing any overtime. So that's a good thing. And then I just monitored you that contract negotiations have been completed by the water board committee.
Yes, if they were doing a study of what went awry with the controls, did you get a conclusions back on that, or they're still working?
I have a preliminary report that talks about its date written and everything was done. And it's basically going back to Power Search. And I'm working on hiring an electrical company to come in and look at our surging situation. Because I think that's critical as we move forward and just check to see if we've got an issue with this. Because we brought Central Hudson down right away and said, hey, we got a surge. And they said, we don't see it on our numbers, so we didn't have a surge. Our numbers show a surge. And I don't think we have anyone here to argue with them. Central Hudson is including our money. So I really want to get a real engineering electrical thing for every that's moving forward now. And our money's hopefully going to be here tomorrow. Get some more work done.
Is there a way we can protect from that in the future?
Let's put in surge controls.
Yeah.
And also making surge. Well, surge control is one. The other one is our pumps are 480 volt and they're significant amount of horsepower. When the high lift starts, it dims the lights in the plant. And so there's a way to put a soft start on that. And that would be something that would cause less of the power hit surge. We're looking at about $16,000 we pay a year because of the surge in electrical bills.
There's an additional 16,000
Yeah,
when the surge.
over the year added to it.
So there's been little surges.
There's been surges, the charge has added up to $16,000 over a year. That could be eliminated if we could cut that back down. So, but it's it's a significant amount, but it's not that significant. We're paying $800,000 here for it. You know,
Do you have any idea when the last things that are on manual are gonna be back on auto or?
the pumps are on auto except for number 4. We've been fine with that. And then, the chlorine pumps maybe tomorrow. I was told they were gonna be done last Wednesday, but so, it's supposed to be here tomorrow, it's supposed to be here tomorrow.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
Number 4, operating budget status.
As of today, through the 8330 line, which is the operations, we spent 37%, we spent 40%, and we're 50% of the year's gone. So overall, we're looking okay. It looks like we'll be able to pull our line. There are some lines that are over that I'm gonna have to justify. Just get them back in normal, but right now, we're still hanging in there. All right.
One question. So, Randy, on the chemicals, what we expected for the rest of the year? Have the pricing, is the pricing down, so it started to flatten out? No longer, I think, I think we're at the top of the peak.
Our bills are constant, so I
Right.
think the issue is how much chemical we use. See, we're at 34% on chemicals
Right.
versus 50% a year, so it's a good one to look at. I think we might be able to save some money in oxygen. And I'll do some further investigation, to see where we're at with that. The chemicals.
We just have more concerned about the last 2 or 3 years, we've had significant price increases because of the war. in Ukraine.
Right, and we budgeted this year. We did budget and we have contracts right now. So this number is included what we, with contracts. So we don't expect anything major changes.
How's the funding status number 5, filter and TSST replacement project?
Right now, I think we got everything in for the submittal for the filters, and we're holding off on the TSST. The question I would like to propose is, what are we gonna do with the filters? Are we gonna wait until the ESC money is available, or can we short-term finance the design? We should be ready to go to design maybe within a month or less.
We missed that next month.
What's the, we put out an RFP for the design then?
That's another question. We put out an RFP for engineering services, which is a broad requirement. And it may be able to use that RFP to select an engineer for that rather than go out for an RFP for the engineering. You might also be able to use Ty and Bond, since they were hired as an emergency contract to do the work they've already done. So,
But we would not be able to get reimbursed for that from the grant.
yeah, you can.
Get reimbursed, New York will reimburse you from the grant.
You
to
still
get
can
it?
borrow EFC money and ask for the reimbursement through their loan. We've done short-term
Loan
loans.
or grant?
Well, it's a combination.
The-
Each of the towns say, okay, combination. We need to check that.
So, I mean, one of the things that you can typically do is, as part of the resident bond resolutions, that have the resolutions indicating that the design costs would be included in the capitalized and subject to the bond. So the bond calculations should include the cost of the design.
You do,
Yeah,
you do.
so,
What we're talking about is, prior to funding the ESC, forward fund that. So we need to make sure that we check it.
yeah, I mean, the EFC, you're right to that point. I mean, as a general proposition, that's something you can do. You know, EFC may have different requirements, because one of the things, EFC has some pretty specific requirements as part of the grant as to, minority and women business criteria. And then under recent federal programs, there's been some kind of, I think, RFQ requirements.
So
So
for example,
something-
if they enforce 30% to stick with that once these days, then would be. Then, fully fund this, you know, maybe 30% would be maybe, it could be more than that amount.
We could verify that that tour who we hired has that. So that when we do go, you know, we could do go out.
Right, that's how.
Yeah,
Getting in some dicey areas.
Okay.
The bigger concern, I think, is the RFQ that's been in place.
What is that requirement?
So it's similar to an RFP, it's called an request for qualifications. So this is something that's been, believe, I know it's been in some of the FC requirements, and I'm not sure if it's been CFA requirement. Some of their programs, but this, they came down, I believe, as a requirement under. Might have been under ARPA or some of the prior infrastructure things, but so.
So similar to that, if they want to be able to approve. So we moved out on engineering. We decided to pull that.
So this month, we'll look into that further and find out where we wanna go
Next
next month.
month, you know, we'll
Yeah,
we can talk to Ty Bond, who's closest to us, he'd probably be in the best position to
mhm.
do the engineering. But how much is the engineering estimate? Not that much, you can't do that much.
Just for the filters, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet it's over $100,000.
Exactly. So, it's not trivial. It's not.
Are we sure that the engineering services have the short-term finance, have the design wrapped into it? Or is that separate? Just, because you were asking about,
No, the
I'm pretty sure.
The estimate had
Bond
engineering-
resolution.
the estimate had engineering design.
okay,
It had all the components of the project,
okay.
so. Just another trying
There
to,
are certain grant programs that exclude design, like WQIP, for instance, but I think in general, you can,
So. And you and Brian both check on that or?
Yeah, we'll have a conversation with Ty Bond. Also, so.
Number 6 is how are the RFPs coming, water board engineer, lawyer, inclusive.
the, lawyer one has been completed. The, flow and study and engineering has not been completed. We're waiting for Tom, we were on vacation, so we'll get it probably next week, I guess.
Tom called me yesterday, he was reviewing it still, and he was wondering. With the engineer and the lawyer, are we required to have a lawyer by the board? Are we required to have the engineer and the lawyer here at the meetings? Or is that something that we do because it's good practice?
Did you say the engineer and?
And the lawyer, yeah, yeah.
Together?
Like, these guys are here at our beckoning, or are you required to be here?
No.
Okay. That's what he was wondering, he's like. He was reviewing things for the numbers and stuff and travel, and he's like, you know.
I've never been in a board meeting without a council.
No, I'm not, I'm just.
But I'm wondering about, like, what's the logic of the engine, like, what's the sort of rationale of having an engineer here?
I guess that's what he was asking. Like, what's it, are we required to have, who's required to be at the meeting? What's the history of the?
Basically, the reason why the engineer is here to, answer some kind of general engineering questions, unless, there's a particular item on the agenda. Right, so for example, John was just saying that certain grants don't include design costs themselves. Practice, I believe, in the board has been to have the engineer present, at the meetings, and that's, it's been.
When the IMA was formed, it was decided that the city would pick a lawyer and the town would pick an engineer. The engineer, and the engineer and the lawyer would be present at all meetings. And that's the way it's been since it's moved forward. Doesn't mean it has to remain that way, but that's where it's been.
We didn't know how that came to be. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, that's an excellent question. I will ask that at the meeting.
Well, it's larger since, how are we best using, working with and partnering with? What are
This is the 30-year IMA.
One more time.
All right, so that's in.
So we do have, we have completed and do have a recommendation or a decision on the, what the attorney or the other two are gonna wait for, filling out a couple one, right?
Number 7, the union.
So, do we need to approve that or?
Do we need to act on that?
Well, yeah, as a board, this is another one of those unwritten kind of, practices. So we did scoring, typically that goes to the board of contracts to supply to say that you're not gonna need a gym.
Okay.
Or something. Yeah, but I think it would be appropriate for the board to approve the scoring.
Getting the, review the proposals that we received from the RFP and, recommends writing a hospital. So talk about, we all filled out scoring sheets that we can talk about. That, or we can put it forward as a recommendation. Does it need to be approved? In this case, it did not need to be approved by the town and the city. Is that right?
No,
Or that chooses its own council.
yeah, I think for all of these, I mean, typically it goes before the board of contracts to supply all contracts have to be signed. So in this case, we, they want to think about how we do this, because it's cumbersome, right? We get two signatures, still do that, and it's better than having the board chairman do it.
Right. Why does something from the joint water board need to go in front of the cities? This
Because
is part of that untangle, so understanding who does what. and when.
exactly, yeah, so we need to discuss that, because, so the board of contracts supply ensures that we follow the procurement policies, because the city is the administrator, right? Or the ones that are actually administering the RFP or RFQ or whatever it is we're doing. So we're following someone's procurement policy, the board does not. So, as the administrative board, for water. Support some following procurement policy according to state law, federal law. Just my observation. There wasn't really anybody here. I really understood. Policy to as the.
Ordinarily, in the town, we would just have a legal department. Rather than have a board to do that.
And so our policy requires that the board do it because of the expansiveness of some of these contracts.
And your view is that since the city administers the joint water plant, therefore that's where.
I think when the board of contracts is supply needs, if it just be a formality or take that piece out. I think that once the scoring mechanism is done according to somebody's policy, if we did, then I think you and the mayor, as you and the mayor could co-sign, or we could say, once it passes this board, right, then somebody said.
Because if it's, in this case, it's pretty clear to me that boards choose their own council, right? And this, so I would think it would be Barb as chair of the board that would sign for an RFP for a attorney or for an engineer.
But the issue becomes that, so we make the selection, but then Barb as the chair, I don't think can be, I don't think she can legally bind. I'm gonna say, because she doesn't have access to resources, she's not a vote.
Which raises the question again about the role of this board. Because if this board can't really do anything without, it doesn't have any authority without the town and the city making the decisions, and so we end up with a triple process here that.
I go back to my comment about the IFA. Because what we could do is we could say in the future, let's let the board chairman, have a warrant authority to a certain amount or within the confines of the budget of the water board. I think that might be. But I think it's the issue is who has warrant authority.
Yes.
I believe you're the only one that has warrant authority. I'm gonna say the mayor is the contracted warrant authority.
Yes, Anyway, that, yeah, it's still part of kind of grappling how this whole thing works, right? It's pretty, and pretty striking for a board not to be able to choose its own council without the approval of the town and city, but because the town and city pay.
No,
Right, it's,
yeah, I think
it
it's.
encapsulates the kind of
Yeah.
complexities of the process.
Yeah, and I think that the selection process is really the lesser part of this. It's more about the binding the full faith and credit behind the town and or the city.
Yes.
To pay for the contractual agreement.
Yeah.
To me, that's the key issue. The full faith and credit of the town and the city.
So there's an analogy in town law, we will say city law regarding planning boards. Planning board has the authority to council or engineer. But the town is responsible for paying bills within the appropriations. So I think that would be kind of an analogy.
It doesn't hold in the town because the planning board does not choose its own attorney. It's the town who chooses the recommendation. I think that the town board said would hold the planning board no to their recommendation,
Okay.
but
Yeah, I think I heard you saying, and I agree. You have to streamline process and just make sure that it's one. One
Which takes
falls for legal.
takes us back to the IMA.
It
Oh,
does,
no.
it does.
I'm
I think,
happy to have that. I'm perfectly happy to sign off and have the meeting or whatever works best, whatever the
I
process.
think it'd be good if the committee was selected by the board with a recommendation and approval by the water board now, so that we can present that to the board of contracts for their
Yeah.
authorization.
Yeah, and if we do that, I think it would be appropriate for us to go to executive session. We're talking about selection process.
All right. But,
So should I move to the executive session again?
Yes, that sounds.
yeah, I'd like to take care of that.
Yes,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
second.
All in
Second that
favor?
motion. What was the reason?
For picking personnel for the council.
Discussing. We're selecting council for,
With that union contract coming number 7, Randy, you said.
They, I think negotiations were completed last Friday. Or last Thursday, and, it's all good to go now. So it needs to be sent to the city and town whenever they have the next opportunity.
the town will, consider it on June 10th. I believe the city council is considering it on June 9th. July, I'm sorry.
July,
Yeah,
just
because
out
I'm
of
a month
time.
behind, right? July 9th and July.
First, I thought it was totally normal. Yeah, June.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
as a member of the committee, I think we, really, had great. How long the union? Obviously, if we came to some really fair and real terms and then we're going to value, of course.
Number 8, old business. We have to bring up IMA. When do you think the IMA is gonna?
So we have scheduled a tentative, date, I think we have a firm date now for our first kickoff.
July 25th, I believe. And just to reiterate, Emily Svensson and Jim Challey and I will be the three on the town representatives from the team.
And, we haven't discussed this yet, but we're talking about an initial meeting, here. So, we'll talk about, probably appropriate that. For onboarding our city. Show us the whole system. You could kind of remediate very quick. Well, as potentially, talk to Randy said he typically gives tours of us and how we can help. That'd be a good use of our time as well.
I think it would be, and we also talked about the need to reach out and interview a lot of people who have experience with the plant at different points in time when there's been conflict between the town and the city and when different proposals have come forward, so that we have a kind of deep history and understanding of what the relationships look like for the months of issue, but then, you know, what's worked well, where there have been issues. I'm not sure we're necessarily interviewing every single person. That's ever been on the water board, you know, to look at, and that's one reason why Jim Challey, I think, will be helpful, because he was on board 20 years ago and has a sort of long-term view of how things have evolved, so.
Brian, would I be allowed to come to the tour, even though I'm not part of the IMA?
Absolutely.
Why don't we become a meeting, becomes a meeting for,
Oh, 4 people.
no, I'm just saying, the board members can't meet. It becomes a public meeting if there's so many members.
Yeah, forum.
Right.
So that would be 4, so that wouldn't be a problem.
So I read the open meeting law and, you know, all the members of our board could go attend a concert together, right? So if we think of the tour as, and essentially a presentation where we are simply observing. I think that that's okay. I think that's acceptable.
We've absolutely run into the same issue on your open meetings law.
But if we stop and we start debating, oh, well, maybe we should do something different, right? That's not okay.
Yeah.
But I think that we could, walk with the plant operator and listen and take a tour. I believe that.
Yes, training doesn't.
That's how planning boards get around it too. If there's a site visit scheduled,
Right.
they agree not to discuss
Right.
anything beyond
Yeah,
what they're
and our
looking.
intent is not to try to get around anything. Our intent is to just empower the open meetings law the way it's written.
Well, the other thing is, for purposes of the IMA, theoretically, it's a discussion between our board members. City officials, so don't necessarily know if it's for purposes of an IMA, but you're not actually conducting what a business.
Well,
And so
So you're in kind of.
our legal interpretation has been this working group and therefore pre-decision on that subject.
Right.
It's like, you wouldn't, to take it to the extreme, you wouldn't have the public looking over your shoulder while you're composing an email. It's pre-decisional, working group, and there's a lot of value in that.
but nonetheless, it concerns the plant, four of us on the tour, we should treat it as we would a site visit, so like a planning board site visit, I think that's an excellent analogy.
Words
It's not-
there's myself, William Brady is a former commissioner of finance, now retired. It's obviously going to be fair, I just said, here we go. And then also James Nycom. We only have 2 minutes.
Any other old business? Number 9, new business.
Could I ask whether the city or the joint water plant has been in conversation in the last couple of months with Chippy about pilots or payments of any kind? Okay, because we had one meeting, they met with Yvonne and myself a couple months back and talked about providing potential payments to the city of Poughkeepsie Water Company. So I'd like to return to them and I think we should work so perhaps we can set up a time for a meeting. At the end of this, yes. I would like to include the WWA as well, because they represent Hyde Park. And I've been in conversation with Gary Bassett through through Hudson 7. And that would bring together those entities in Dutchess that are involved, that do intake from the river. Because WWA runs Hyde Park, Gary Bassett runs Village of Rhinebeck, plus the Poughkeepsie Water Plant. I think we should all be in conversations. with each other.
Yeah, I think-
Individual conversations with Chippy are going to be very fragmented, whereas if we speak with them together about some kind of a payment. They're calling it a pilot, it doesn't make sense to me because it's not a pilot. It's not in lieu of something else, they would owe us. But it is, they are working with, those communities along the river that could potentially be affected by Chippy. through our water intake, and I think we should continue that conversation with them, not drop. So,
Yeah, I concur. I'm not sure what happened, meeting with, the mayor, but anyway, I attended, one of the public information sessions, at, Franklin and I applied for, so I had the reserve there, point there.
Only point,
Right, so.
North,
Oh, Quiet
Yes,
Cove.
Point Point, yes.
North Point.
Oh.
Yes. So, and they were absolutely, I talked to VP, she's the one that's in the meeting there. And she was absolutely confused, about, you know, what communities would back then. What water plant, it's ours joint water. Town limits.
Okay.
So, yeah, they were ill prepared.
yeah, and I think we need to engage with them further. And they're also talking with school districts and other entities, so it's a little unclear to me where they're speaking to entities that are specific to communities that are lining the river, communities that are drawing their water from the river.
That would,
It's a little unclear, but I think, we need to educate her, as you say, or, work with them to make sure they understand the structures here and that they are in conversation with all of this.
Who's gonna set up that meeting?
I'd be glad to. We could figure out who from the city and who from the joint water plant, Randy, I don't know if you or someone else wants to join. Who from the committee wants to join, maybe we can set something up right after the holiday.
are you thinking about a separate thing or thinking about bringing it to the board for? presentation?
I think we should perhaps meet first. I have the material that Chippy gave me. We'll share that around and perhaps then with WBA and Gary Bassett and then see where we are from there.
Can I just give a brief orientation on where we stand with this? Very briefly. But I'll be talking about it.
Sure.
On the top of this.
Post community agreements? You wanna do that now?
But I can do it now.
I think if you can just share what your conversation with them, then that could be helpful.
So we have not had a direct conversation with them. So the agreement they sent was a joint agreement between Water Authority, Illinois, City of McKinney. The three signatories.
But no one signed it. It was their draft proposal,
Now,
which reflected.
Gary and I have been trying to get everybody to the table. I already had my look at it and that's being negotiated.
Where did that go on the city? Excuse me, where did it go on the city?
We. Mayor was copied on number.
Right.
Who should be sent to the city, I don't know.
The other issue is that Chippy is confused, and doesn't understand the joint water plant, so the joint water plant and the town weren't copied at all. So we need to all work together and make sure that we are all in the conversation along with WWA on behalf of Hyde Park and Gary Bassett.
So we've already
That never happened yet.
negotiated approved terms, and term clauses, but I negotiated with them. That was a number of months ago. But Gary looked at it, seemed okay, ready for. This had to need to sign off and sign out.
Better see it first.
So,
$30 million over 30 years,
so,
split equal. Play that agreement.
so. One of the entities, the city of Poughkeepsie Water Company doesn't exactly. fit. I mean, it does, but it's, I think the Shippy is misaligned with the joint water board. So we need to figure out what that would look like. So could you forward us that? And Brian, are you the point person for the city on this? Is that? or that-
Remember the joint water board, yes.
I would think the city members of the joint water board, you and Megan and Chris. maybe.
Yeah, at a minimum, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yep.
This has been going on for months, I've seen it.
Well-
When I spoke to the VP from, Indian Group. Said she was pretty misinformed about, water production.
Yes, and if it, and Barb and I can circulate it to all of you. as well as Randy and Dot. I think I should just circulate it to everybody, and then we can, this week, set up a meeting for after the holiday.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if you're available.
You can help figure out who might be in them. And then we need you to be great, but rather make it
I
out.
might be available after the holiday. Fall.
We can get you a copy of it tomorrow, again.
That'd be great.
And then start thinking about where it might, how to route it.
Right, any other new business? So our next meeting is August, oh, sorry,
You want to take the session?
I was gonna say this
Don't
and then
sign out. Okay.
and go to executive session. Our next meeting is August 5th at 4:30 here, but we need to start an executive session to discuss personnel issues. Hiring of,
I'm moving to section, so.
thank you, do I have a second?
Right.
Thank you. All in favor?